Welcome back, my friends. So this is a not unscheduled live stream, but it is a short notice special live stream. So welcome, and though we haven't got many people here, if you are here, then please do say hello in the chat. It's good to know who we've got on the call. And today is all about giving you a little bit of a flavour for what I learned at the APM's annual conference, which is now a week and a half ago, about 10 days ago. It was a week ago last Thursday. So I've had some time to kind of digest and think about some of the things, and I wrote lots of notes at the conference. I'm a bit of a note taker, and I am quite analog. It's all in a paper notebook. So I've been through, kind of highlighted them, tried to give a bit of structure to it. So looking forward to just sharing those ideas with you. But before we do, we've got Felipe from Chile, and Hambo Gumbel, regular. So that's two continents straight off, South America. So it must be quite early in the morning for you, all the way down there in Chile. Not quite sure what time zone you're on. Can't kind of picture how North and South America slopes, so I don't know. So it's good that you've been able to make time early in your day. So thank you for that. And Hambo Gumbel in the UK afternoon. It's good to have you here. I did this last year with last year's conference, and it seemed to go down well. Quite a lot of people watched on replay. The challenge with YouTube, one of the reasons I like YouTube as a format is it provides free content for people all over the world. The challenge with people all over the world is if you're going to do something live, it's very hard to find a time that suits everybody. The people in India and east of India would have to start very late. Was it 5.5 hours ahead? So it's 10:30 in Mumbai, and by the time you get to East Asia, we're talking really, really late. And the people in the Americas, it's early morning. For the West Coast, it's straight up, straight onto a call after you've had your breakfast, I think. So the West Coast of the States, I think it's around 9 a.m.-ish. EDR group from Mexico. Wow, that's great. The single largest contingent is from South America. Well, I suppose Mexico, South America, or Central America. Continent-wise, I suppose it's North America. But geopolitically, interesting. Interesting to hear what you think. Anyway, we're not here to talk about geopolitics. Thank goodness. That's a bit of a mess globally, isn't it? But interestingly, although I'm not going to be talking about politics, one of the themes of this year's APM conference, and a very welcome theme, is the idea of social projects, the idea that as project managers, we have a contribution to make to society. And as I'm thinking about it over the last week or so, I've been thinking that there's actually a potential kind of area for me to focus on over the kind of coming months and years. Sorry, there's something on my screen. So that's a kind of area I'm interested in. So watch this space as I kind of figure it out. On other news, this year, as you know, is my year of artificial intelligence and project management. So we'll be taking a little detour in that direction at the end of this session. It did come up, not surprisingly, artificial intelligence came up in the conference. Hambo Gumbel, Mexico and USA are hosting the World Cup together. Wow, I suppose Mexico has the tradition for football, and the United States has the space for lots of arenas. I don't know. Mexico's a pretty big city, pretty big country, but I guess financially, wasn't there a thing about building a wall between the two? Let's not get into that. Anyway, I'm going to dive straight in, and so let me just share my slides. So I'm calling this a special Change Changes live stream. Change Changes is the name of the conference. And by the way, let's just pop me in there. By the way, I will be bringing out an edited video from the conference next Tuesday, a week today. It's all edited. I uploaded it early afternoon today, and that went up. So that'll be live this time next week, and that will feature recorded interviews with some of the speakers, and so you'll get their perspectives. So that's going to be kind of almost a more of a kind of formal record of the event. Things did go wrong for me technically, but you'll find out more about that when you watch the video. But I think I've got a great video for you. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. So look out for that. And there will be some content in that I'm not going to cover today, deliberately. And of course, there will also be much more content in this than there is in that. And I can take questions if there's something I talk about that you're interested in. Now, I am kind of hoping that a representative from APM will be joining us. Rebecca Gallagher, she's not here yet, but at some point I'm hoping she'll say hi on the chat and declare herself, and I can make her a moderator and she can give you links. But if not, I've got a set of links I can give you to things I refer to. So hoping it'll be nice and slick, but we'll see. But yeah, next week we've got another video out about some of this, and you'll hear from some of the speakers directly, which I think is quite exciting. Anyway, let's go back to the slides and have a look at the first slides. This is both a summary of the conference program, and it is also my agenda for my description of the conference. So, conference, as you'd expect, was opened by the Chief Executive of the Association for Project Management, as Adam Bodson, and he said, and I was quite surprised. It was quite a contentful, quite a thoughtful, interesting opening where we learned some real stuff. So that was great. So I'm going to share a fair bit from that. I think about 3 or 4 main themes. But interestingly, he developed those themes and said a lot more towards the end, which I'll come to in a moment. Morning keynote was Carmel McConnell. Carmel is the founder of Magic Breakfast, which is a UK-based charity which believes that children will do better at school if they're not hungry, and aims therefore to provide breakfast for any child who would not otherwise get a breakfast. And I think they're providing about 40 million breakfasts at the moment a year, which is astonishing. And she just left her job. She set this up, I think, in a sabbatical year, and then decided that she wanted to stick with this rather than go back to her job. And she gave us an inspirational keynote around change and change activism. So I'll talk about that. Got some nice ideas from that. Then the conference split into 2 streams of 3 panels per stream. So the second half of the morning and the first half of the afternoon were panels, and you could choose which of 2 panels you went to for each section. One stream was focused on Future Lives and Landscapes, which is APM's big campaign that it's kicked off recently, and that's really interesting. And then the other one was on Change Challenges, which was about the challenges we face rising from change. I think I said in my kind of preview videos that I made for the conference, the challenge with streamed conferences is that you have to miss stuff that you want to see, and there's no way around that, I'm afraid. When I kind of highlighted what I really wanted to see, there were four things that particularly attracted me, and so that was a challenge, especially as because I wanted to interview some of both the keynote speakers and Adam Bodson and Matt Johnson from the APM as well. That kind of ate into my day, and so I actually only got to 2 panels, but both of them were excellent, and got some learning to share from those as well. The closing panel was, I think, quite remarkable. I suspected it would be, and it was confirmed to me the first time that APM, senior representatives of APM and PMI shared a stage, which was fantastic. So we got some interesting stuff there, which I will share with you. And then the closing keynote was Langley Sharp. Langley Sharp is a former commanding officer within the parachute regiment of the UK Armed Forces. So I think he left service as a lieutenant colonel. He also served in a leadership role leading the Army Leadership College at Sandhurst. So he's a man who really understands leadership. He has served on the front line. He's led larger and larger groups of soldiers, and he's helped train the next generation of leaders. So he had some really interesting things to say. And I'm always sceptical about people talking about leadership outside of their area of experience. His area of experience is clearly uniformed services, the armed forces. However, I think what he said was very, very relevant to us as project managers, and I think that APM chose very well in selecting him as their closing keynote. So I'll be sharing some of that. And as I say, particularly Carmel McConnell and Langley Sharp, I was keen to interview them and get some of their content in their own words for you, and you will get that this time next week. Well, not this time next week, earlier in the day next week, my usual release time for my pre-programmed videos. So that come out, I think at this time of year, it's around 4 a.m. UTC. So they'll be there for you when you wake up next Tuesday, and it's a really good video. It's got some really fantastic content, and I can say that without shame, without humility, because all I did was string together the content that's there, and I share with you 10 specific lessons I learned at the conference, so or insights I gained. But let's go into it. We've now got Patrick as well from North America, so that's our third continent represented. Fantastic. So welcome back, Patrick. Anyway, let's move on. Let's see what's next. So the first speaker was Professor Adam Bodson. I'm going to get rid of my my ugly mug from here, simply because I'm going to be... Whoops, wrong one. I'm going to be reading from my notes, so you don't want to see the top of my head, because this is just literally the things I noted down, and I've highlighted the best bits. And in some cases, because they're panels, they're not as structured as a speaker would be. And the big panel at the end with APM, PMI, and a couple of industry representatives of industry, that was a hot mess in terms of themes kind of disappeared and then came back. So I'll sort my way through it. You'll hear some rustling of paper as well as I flick through pages. But anyway, Adam Bodson, I mean, he led his opening address with a couple of cliches, I suppose, but they're relevant cliches. He reminded us of the high pace of change at the moment. I don't think there's anyone going to be listening to this either live or on replay that hasn't noticed the high pace of change, nor expects that will diminish in any way. And he made the comment that gives us a lot of opportunity. And made a comment which I have heard before, and I think is true, that leadership is now about the delivery of change. That's how he expressed it. I think it always has been, but I think it is more so now. A bigger chunk of corporate and political leadership is about managing, delivering change. So that's interesting. He made a call for something which I have called for a long time, and in fact I spoke to a senior member of staff at APM on the day about this. He made a call for a C-suite role for project professionals. A chief project officer, just as you would have a chief operating officer. Operations is about business as usual. Project is about business as it will be tomorrow. And he argued that we need that CPO role, and I have long argued that. And my view is that if you are in an organisation, if you're at a senior level in an organisation, if you're consulting to organisations, and you want to kind of figure out how to make that happen, I think the people to talk to are the IT professionals and the HR professionals, because both of those professions, first the IT and then the HR professions, made the case for a chief technology officer role at board level, and a chief human resources or chief personnel officer role at board level. And I suggested that really, if APM is serious about campaigning for this, then the people to talk to are the IT professional bodies and the HR professional bodies. Not sure who the IT professional body is in the UK. Some people might recognise that, but certainly in the UK, the biggest HR professional body is the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, CIPD, also chartered like APM, and so there's a conversation to be had there, and I think that's absolutely right. He also talked about the international presence of Association for Project Management. I frankly always take that with a tiny pinch of salt, because at the moment it's Hong Kong, which is problematic in so many ways, and the Channel Islands in terms of branches and then scattering of APM members around the world, a lot of them probably expats. However, he started the conversation, which we'll pick up. I'll pick up his thread, which he developed a lot at the closing panel. He started the conversation about collaboration with other international organisations. And APM has long been a member of the IPMA, International Project Management Association, but we're going faster and further. And he said we are global by default, which I thought was a bold statement of intent. I liked it. But he did also say, well, what are we? What is the identity for APM? And pointed out that it has many different roles. It is a professional body, the body that represents the profession. It is a membership body, a body that professionals can join and get membership benefits from. And it is a trade body that represents the craft and the trade of project management. So it's got lots of things. But I did write down and verbatim his closing, what I think was the last thing he said. He said, when projects succeed, society benefits. And I think that is a lovely summing up of one of the two themes of the conference, the theme of their Future Lives and Landscapes campaign, which I'll talk a bit about, but take a look at the video that comes out next week, because Matt Johnson, who leads on that, or is one of the leads on that for APM, talks about what that campaign is in my video and how it will benefit us. But the benefits society theme will come up again and again, and it did almost immediately, because the first kind of external speaker, and the next on was Carmel McConnell. And Carmel McConnell, as I say, founded Magic Breakfast and also wrote the book Change Activist. I have a link to that. I'll put a link to that into the chat. Just 2 seconds. Because Change Activist is a splendid book, well worth considering if you're a reader and interested in change. I'll say a bit more about it in a moment, and so yeah, I'll talk about what Carmel said, and then you can assess whether her ideas are for you. I've noticed that you've got Jessica has joined. Hello, Mike, and everyone following from Rwanda. Excellent. That's our third continent. That's Africa represented. I aspire to become a project manager. Well, what a great aspiration. And interestingly, one of the things that Adam Bodson did talk about, both in his comments to me in next week's video, but also in the panel, which I'll talk about later, was the importance of drawing new people into the profession. So you are very welcome to the profession, Jessica. Ask whatever questions you have. I will try and answer any that I can, but we've also got some experienced project managers here. I happen to know that Hambo Gumbel has some real chops in this, and Patrick consults in the in consulting, so you've got a lot of knowledge in here. And just as a reminder, I know we've got more people viewing than have put their comments in added to the comments section. Please do, but it's not required of you. Of course, you're entitled to just lurk and watch quietly and listen. Hambo points out the British Computing Society has a connection to House of PMOs. House of PMO, for those of you who don't know, is a PMO membership body, professional body, standards body now. Are they a proper standards body? Probably not formally, but they've produced a set of role descriptions for PMO roles and published that, and I think it's the only one that's really been published widely. They had their conference this week. No, it was last week. So the week after APM PMO held their conference in London, I think. Could be wrong about that. Yeah, London, I'm fairly sure it was, and that by all accounts was very successful. Didn't get to go to that. But it wouldn't surprise me if BCS, British Computing Society, and House of PMO are connected. But didn't know that. Anyway, Carmel McConnell describes herself as a change activist, founded Magic Breakfast. Fantastic story. She basically started her session by telling us that she saw her role at the conferences to support and equip us to take action, and action was her main theme. I mean, it really was. And some of the changes she highlighted climate change, which is a big one, and gave us a rather nice quote from Mark Carney, who is the UN envoy, I think, for climate change, formerly a very senior banker, was for a while the governor of the Bank of England, as it happens. And he said firms that fail to tackle climate change will go bankrupt. I'm not sure if I would describe that as optimistic, but I'd like to think that there will be a penalty for companies that don't tackle climate change, although I would much rather that they did. She also talked about the impact of AI, which, as you know, if you follow my channel, I think is an important theme for the year. She relayed a Gartner prediction that 80% of project management jobs will go to AI by 2030. Not quite sure I buy that, but I guess it depends on your definition of project management jobs. If the kind of management assistants and administrators are counted as PM jobs, then maybe so. So her response is that we should be taking action first, that we should look at our projects through the lens of change activists, or activist leaders. That is to say, we should look for something that we want to change, something that we feel passionately about, that we know needs to happen, and we should sort of seize the day. And she said change activists are people that take action outside their comfort zone. That means that change activists are fundamentally ordinary people who are prepared to make the world a better place from a desire to create social change. And she then told the story of Magic Breakfast as an illustration of that. She gave us a nice model, which I will describe in the video, which I've described in the video that comes out next week, so do watch that, around the process of change activism. However, she also talked about the importance of taking a baby step that is both in line with your values but outside of your comfort zone. If you want to make change happen, you have to stretch yourself first. But the thing that people worry about is that she made the point that the things people worry about is that people will say, they won't let me. I can't do that. And she said, who are these they that won't let you? And she pointed out that we as human beings have agency, and we can make change if we choose to do something that makes us happy and gives us a sense of purpose. So instead of saying, can I, she says we should ask, how can I? And the other question she suggested we ask was a good one, is what if low risk became high risk? What if the low risk of not acting becomes the higher risk, higher than the risk of acting? She also gave a rather nice phrase, the phrase of a noble why. That is, the answer to why, of course, is a reason, a purpose. So a noble why is a noble reason. That's how I interpreted it. And then she ended with something very practical, which I thought, which really rung a bell with me. She said, on every project I do a pre-mortem. Now, for those of you who don't know what a pre-mortem is, a pre-mortem is a process that we do at the start of a project which anticipates failure, and so in what ways might this project fail spectacularly when it goes live. So instead of looking at the plans and looking for everything that's wrong with the plans, you just say, what would happen if it was a complete and utter chaos on day one? And I think it's a fantastic model. It was a model that was developed by Gary Klein. He wrote about it in his book, The Power of Intuition. Let me just grab a copy. Of the two books of his that I've read and got copies of, this is the easier one, and The Power of Intuition is a great read. I should try and find a link to that if I can. But pre-mortem is a brilliant approach, and I have a video about that, about what a pre-mortem is and how to run a pre-mortem on the channel. So that I do have teed up for you. So let's paste a link in there. So that's what Carmel spoke about, the kind of her passion for change, her passion for finding something that is not good enough, needs to be better, needs to be improved or changed, and determining what change you're going to make, and then building a plan and making it happen. And of course, once you get to the plan bit, we're on firm ground as project managers, so that was nice. So let's go back to the slides, and the next slide is about the first of the panels that I went to, and it was a Future Lives and Landscapes panel. The Future Lives and Landscapes campaign, as I understand it, is about how does project management as a profession respond to the need for social change in the UK. And the panel I went to, which was about remapping success, was really about how can we make social projects succeed. And it had a couple of consultants on it. It had Tim Banfield, I think, from Banfield Advisory. It had Mike Hudson from the National Trust, who I think said the thing that I was most taken with, and the thing I'm going to share with you. I think it was he that said that. I could be doing a disservice to someone else who might have said it, but I'm fairly sure it's Mike Hudson. We had Gillian McGee, who works at AstraZeneca, and Andrew Morgan, head of project delivery at HMRC, which is His Majesty's Revenue and Customs. It's our basically our tax agency in the UK. And he pointed out, Andrew Morgan pointed out, that government is now starting to bring sustainability and social impact into the process of evaluating competitive bids for government contracts, which I thought was fantastic. Now, it's long been assumed that all government competitive contracts are let solely on price. That has never been true in my working career. I spent 12 years as a working consultant, most of the time working with local and central government in the UK. I did have plenty of private sector clients, but I think, by far the majority of the time, those 12 years I was spent with public sector clients, including running competitive tenders. And I ran a competitive tender for a client that procured £600 million worth of contracts, 13 contracts for £600 million. And those were not procured solely on price. However, they weren't procured in any way based on sustainability and social impact, except that arguably the nature of the project was fundamentally around sustainability and social impact. It was the London congestion charge, if you're wondering, which, as far as I know, the only person affected by that on the live stream at the moment is Hambo Gumbel, who lives in London, I believe. But I thought that was great. And he said, we're not there yet. We don't really know how to do it as well as we would want to, but it's a learning journey, and we are committed to evaluating competitive bids partly on sustainability and social impact, which I think is fantastic, because we need to place that thing front and centre. Let me just get rid of my ugly mug there. So, as I say, I think it was Mike Hudson who talked about his assessment of the key to making social projects successful. And I thought this was really useful and really interesting, and something I'd like to think more about and possibly develop my thoughts on this, because I have been involved in some social projects, not to the extent that the National Trust does social projects day in, day out. And in the UK, I would say the National Trust is one of the finest not-for-profit organisations. It's one that my family has been members of as long as we've been a family. We make good use of their stuff. Basically, they buy up bits of Britain. They buy up old buildings, they buy up special buildings, they buy up special pieces of land, land of scientific interest, of great natural beauty, and then they hold it in trust for the future. They basically take the perspective that, this belongs not to us as individuals now, it belongs to all the generations that follow us. And so they invest for the long term in making this stuff available and protecting it and stewarding it. So he is someone from an organisation that really understands what social projects are, and has delivered many tens, hundreds of thousands of social projects across the UK. Across England and Wales. There is a National Trust for Scotland, which was a client of mine for many years, which does the same thing but with in Scotland. Anyway, some of the keys he mentioned, he talked about a relentless pursuit of the purpose. And purpose was a word that Carmel McConnell also used and put front and centre, so I think that's really important. What is our purpose? He talked about, and this is what he said is true of all projects, but he used the phrase dial up, and he talked about dial up partnership working. Social projects need partnership working, probably partly because there's never enough money in one organisation, and also because you need to be working with a range of stakeholders, and by partnering with other organisations, you access other stakeholders, and you therefore do a better job of meeting social purposes. He talked about an enhanced need to deal with financial ambiguity and uncertainty, because he didn't say why, but I think there's a couple of reasons. One is funding for social projects is never certain in itself, but secondly, you are dealing with multiple stakeholders and multiple approval processes. It's not like a company where up to a certain level an individual can say yes, and up beyond that level the board can say yes, but that's it, it's locked in because you've got this partnership working. He talks about need for greater humility and listening, and of course that has to be true because we're dealing with multiple stakeholders, we're dealing with society. And he also talks about the need for resilience, the ability to take the knocks, because there will be setbacks, and there will be setbacks because of all kinds of reasons. But one of those is because you've got to bring lots of stakeholders into alignment, and some stakeholders will change their view as time progresses. And of course, things will go wrong. You're trying to do something hugely ambitious. If you're the National Trust, you're trying to protect some very precious natural and built assets for the long term, and those are complex. Nature is deeply, deeply complex, and the needs of some of the old buildings and man-made artifacts that they are preserving for the future are really subtle and complex. So I thought that was really interesting. To his list, I would add, I wrote in my notes, I'd add enhanced political acumen. I talk a lot about the need for political acumen for us as project managers. We would like to say, would we not, that I'm a project manager. I don't do politics. But the reality is, of course, we are always working in a political environment. Wherever you've got two people in a room, there's politics. If you're dealing in social projects, then that politics is dialed up in its complexity, and it's dialed up, I would say, in the stakes that people have in the outcomes. So I think enhanced political acumen is another thing. And as I say, I think this is a really fertile area that we should, as project managers, be thinking of, because a large number of project managers are engaged in delivering projects of social value. Some of us are doing it in our spare time as voluntary contributions, others are working full time. And the Future Lives and Landscapes campaign that APM is running, part of that is about social projects and the need to provide project managers for those in the UK. And I'm going to paste a link into the chat. I've noticed that someone else has joined the chat, so I'll have a look at that in a moment. And this is a link to the campaign homepage for the Future Lives and Landscapes campaign. And there are some great statistics on there if you are a UK project manager, or even if you're not, if you're interested in social value projects. Have a look at this, because it shows how UK project managers perceive on a region by region and a sectoral basis the availability of project managers for social value and social projects, which is really interesting, and I'll be fascinated to see how that campaign rolls out over the coming year. Ali says, thanks for teaching me online, Sir Mike Clayton. I'm not Sir Mike Clayton. The New Year's Honours list came out, the King's Birthday Honours came out in the UK a week or so ago, and I regret to inform you that I am as yet unknighted, but cross my fingers, and maybe I will be genuinely Sir Mike Clayton. You can call me Dr. Mike. My mother insisted on using the doctor. Very few other people do. So it's great to have you here, Ali. And I'm wondering where you're from, whether we can pop an extra consonant onto our list. Okay, so that was remapping success, the panel remapping success in the Future Lives and Landscapes stream. The next panel I went to, if I can find the right button, was the Change Challenges stream, and it was a panel called Preparing for a Digital Future. This featured three speakers. One, Andy Murray, who leads the Major Projects Association here in the UK. Those of you who have seen my interview with Jonathan Norman, he's one of the senior staff at the Major Projects Association, and the Major Projects Association deals with huge projects, so that's really interesting. We had James Garner from Gleeds, which is I think a big surveying firm in the UK, and then Breda Ryan from Jacobs Major Projects, from Jacobs Major Programs. And they were really focusing on preparing for digital future, and they were talking about data analytics. And I think, do I have a link to it? I don't, but I will find it. First thing to point out is that APM has some fantastic resources on its website. Do have a look. Let me just grab that for a moment. So if I go to apm.org, let's just pop over for a moment. At the moment they're plugging their salary and market trends survey, and if you're interested in that, do get yourself a copy. Do take a look at the video I made. What was it? A week or two ago it came out, which was a video about whether project management is a good career and how well does it pay. And I kind of quoted some data from that survey. There's a link to it in the chat. But will I be able to find it quickly enough? Let's have a look. So my technique is to go to the bottom and look for research and published research. There's a golden thread. Data analytics, yes. So have a look at this, because there's a really good report, Project Data Analytics. I'll grab the link. Whoops, pressed the wrong button there. I'll grab the link to that and put that in the chat as well. That report is well worth downloading if you're interested in finding out the basics of data analytics, get a bit of an insight into that. APM produces some fantastic reports constantly, is producing some great content. So it doesn't matter what sort of project manager you are, where you're based, the APM has some really good content that it makes available for free. It also has some very good publications, which it does charge for. Some very good books. As some of you may remember, I interviewed Carol Osterweiler, one of the speakers from last year's conference, who brought out a fantastic book on neuroscience in project management, and I have to say that was my book of the year last year. So there we go. So Ali is from Djibouti. Fantastic. Middle East. It's not quite Africa, it's not quite Europe. I'm going to call it Asia to get a hit on another continent, I think. Not sure whether you would call it Asia, Ali. Anyway, so let's carry on. I did want to highlight that Getting Started guide, because I think it's worth downloading if you're interested. But they talked about data analytics as a major disruptor. It's going to give potentially give away power. Data analytics will take power away from professionals like us in some ways, but it will allow us to get more value from what we do and the data we have. And so used wisely, data analytics could really transform the profession. He talked about the fact that the current way that project management best practices, or someone, I didn't make a note of who, someone talked about the way that current codification of project management best practices is not data driven. We don't talk about use of data in with any kind of rigor in any of the methodologies, any of the kind of codification I'm aware of. I've got a few project management textbooks on my shelf. They don't talk about data analytics. There's nothing in the APM Body of Knowledge 7th edition or the Project Management Institute's PMBOK Guide 7th edition about data analytics, and yet things are shifting. We are using data analytics tools. I suppose the most widely used tool is Power BI, and that's going to enable much more data-informed discussions and decision making. So I think my reflection on this conversation that they had was that we need to explore how we bring data analytics into our project management methodologies, but also we need to expose the data that we are gathering and analysing to machine learning, so that it's not just analysed using a set of algorithms and routines that we've developed, but we let machine learning understand that data and draw its own conclusions. Fascinating thing I read in New Scientist this week, last week's New Scientist. So one of the commonest kind of computing routines in the world is a sorting routine. And a sorting routine it basically takes a load of names and will arrange them in alphabetical order. It takes a load of numbers or data points or numerical data and arranges them in numerical order. And we've had sorting routines for years and years and years, and software engineers have been sort of tweaking them and improving them, and they got to the point where they thought that there would never be any significant improvement. Some data scientists trained machine learning on a huge number of numerical and text-based sets of data and asked them to sort, and gave the machine learning tools the task of writing algorithms to sort the data, and gave them feedback on how efficient, not on how efficient the algorithms were, but on how accurate the algorithms were. And what they found was that starting not from tweaking the algorithms that we have, but creating their own new algorithms, the machine learning tools actually created algorithms which, for small data sets, were 70% faster than the sorting routines we have, sorting algorithms we have. And even for huge data sets, they were still almost 2% faster. Now, 2% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider how many millions of data sorts are happening at any one time across the world, that's a lot of computer resources. If we can say 2% of every data sorting computer resource, that's huge. So machine learning can take an idea and can find patterns. They can find new proteins and new stuff. It's just astonishing. And they ended up by articulating a call from the Data Trust. It's an organisation I'm not familiar with, and I haven't had a chance to do my research. So if any of you know the Data Trust, I guess it's a UK organisation. Apparently Data Trust has made a call for organisations to give access to their data as a common good. That is, to make the data available freely. Rather than being protectionist about data, the point they made is that if we are protectionist about data, we have all this data that we own, nobody can access, but has no benefit to us. We will get benefit as organisations when we release our data to analysis along with other organisations' data, and clearly they are aware of the importance of data protection and making sure that it's suitably anonymised. I get that. I'm sure they do. Oh, Djibouti's Horn of Africa. Okay. Don't get another continent because we've already got someone from Rwanda, but great to have you there. Small country. Small but perfectly formed, I'm sure. Oh, we've got the influential PMO. Stuart Taylor is on. Stuart was at the House of PMO conference. He did kind of roving reporter thing. There's a couple of videos on his channel, I think, of him talking to people at the House of PMO conference. So if anyone's got any questions about that conference, I would recommend you can either ask him in the chat if he's on. He says he's on the Met line. I'm assuming he's got past the central London part of the Met line where he might be going under tunnels, and he's on his way out of town on the Met line. So hopefully he'll be able to stick and answer some of your questions, or pop over to the influential PMO channel after this and asking questions there. Interestingly, we're talking about data and analytics, and I'll talk a bit more about artificial intelligence in a bit. But he did a great interview a while ago with Andy Kaufman. who has a great artificial intelligence product, which I'm going to be talking to Andy about, and I'm going to make you an offer at the end of today for how you can access that. So Stuart's got a great channel too. I do have a look at it. I know he's got a new video out today, and I haven't seen it because, you know, preparing for this. Anyway, good to have you on the call, Stuart. And if you want to put a link to today's video, which I think you interviewed a load of people at PMO, House of PMO conference. So anyway, let's get back to the presentation. So the next thing was the big panel. So let's take a look at that. So this picture here, if I've got the names in the right order, you can see on the far right in the darker suit is Paul Bradley of PA Consulting. He was chairing the session, so therefore didn't contribute very much content. And then from the left we have Alistair Gobold of the Nichols Group, which is big, I think, heavy engineering or construction based consulting group in the UK. Then we have Listen, I think, Drabon, and she leads the PMI in Europe. So there, second from the left is a senior PMI representative on an APM stage, and sitting next to her, third on the left, second on the right, in the pale grey suit, is Adam Bodson, who is the chief executive of the APM. So this is great. I mean, I'd been looking forward to hearing, you know, the messages that PMI and APM gave against one another. And as I say, this was quite a long panel, and it was a panel which meant they bounced around and returned to ideas. So I'm going to take this out of panel sequence. If I can follow my notes, I'm going to take it. Take one theme at a time. I've kind of listed, I think, 7 priorities that they talked about, or 7 topics. And the first was just a throwaway ones, but it was said that pointed out that, you know, we have new ways of working as professionals and as, you know, and as managers and leaders. There are new ways of working. But politics is at a, let's say, a difficult moment in history, and I think when history books are written, we'll see this kind of period geopolitically as, I hope, a period of instability rather than the start of a period of huge instability. Let's hope. We've got climate change. This is happening. You know, we are going to breach the 1.5 degree temperature rise next year. I think every credible climate scientist is expecting, with the El Nino event that we're expecting next year, that we will breach the 1.5 degree centigrade rise in global temperatures from baseline that almost every country stated a commitment to prevent. And technology is changing. You know, I think anyone who's involved in artificial intelligence sees ChatGPT as an evolution that, you know, had to appear at some point, but to most of us as kind of, if you like, innocent observers, it just came out of nowhere at the end of last year, and it seems to have made changes. So we need to deliver change as project managers. The second theme, which was a much more kind of meaty theme, I think, which they kind of came back to, was the need to get failure rates down on projects. Now, this is an old saw, in the sense that lots of organisations, I think, make a living out of claiming that projects fail, and therefore you need to buy the chaos report or the Standish report or whatever, or you need to hire this consultant or that consultant. I think the reality is, I don't think huge numbers of projects fail. I think we do fail to make accurate predictions about outturns, however, and maybe AI will help us with that. But that, I think, led to a bit of a discussion about the need for increased levels of scrutiny, and how much harder it is going to be to hide overspends and overruns and failings. And I think if you link that to the data analytics conversation. I think there's a real imperative that we are honest about offering real project data to the artificial intelligence, the machine learning tools, because that's the only way we will get better at predicting, when machine learning is better able to make good predictions because it's got a bigger and more reliable data set. The other thing that I suspect that links to is one of the panel sessions which I'd love to have gone to, but it was back to back, I think, with one of the ones I went to, which was a panel session with the National Audit Office talking about their report around the need to revisit kind of program and project setups when they're going wrong. And I wish I'd been able to go to that. And sitting on my second desk over there, I'm waving in that direction, but you can't properly see me. But sitting over there is the NAO, National Audit Office, NAO report, which I'll possibly be doing some content on. We've got a couple of comments. Thank you, Mike, says Stuart. Had a lot of fun interviewing people at PMO conference, and you're right, some of the interviews appear in this video. Okay, so go have a look at that after this. Hambo says, not failure, just feedback. Yeah, again, it's very easy to be cynical about that. There's no such thing as failure, there's just feedback. But the reality is that that is a really important reframe. We learn from the things that don't go our way. And if we are not doing difficult things, then yeah, we may not fail, but neither will we achieve remarkable things that people like Carmel McConnell enjoin us to do. Once they name me, I wasn't is here. Dr. Mike is the king of project management who will reign forever. We must get better at planning and holding ourselves to account. Absolutely, we absolutely must. Move away from the iron triangle to value management. Now, that's a really interesting question to raise. Once they name me, I wasn't. Often puts comments on my videos. I really enjoy reading them. I kind of blush and shudder a bit at their effusive compliments, but often there's a really valuable contribution there, and I think there is one here. Indeed, when I talked about Mike Hudson, National Trust, talking about keys to social projects, it made me think about what does the iron triangle look like, the time cost quality triangle. How do we morph the time cost quality triangle in the UK, the time cost scope triangle in the US, that the US call the iron triangle? How do we morph that for social projects? And I think we've got corners like delivery, like funding, like social value, but there are a lot of people who have kind of tried to rewrite this kind of triangle, and I think the fullest rewriting is from Elio Costa, friend to the channel. Done a couple of interviews with him. There's a big article on the website, and also a long interview with him on YouTube about his flex methodology, project management method. It's a whole project management methodology, hybrid from the ground up, but he talks about, I think, 6 features. Bear with me 2 seconds while I find a notebook. I did the full flex training with him. He was kind enough to invite me to join the full flex training. Let me just go back to full screen for a moment, and I think if I can find the right notebook, I can find my notes, because he, I think, had a 6-fold framework for to replace time cost quality. And where did I put it? It's in this notebook somewhere. He kind of made the point that everything is variable, and he sticks value in the middle of a circle, and around it he has time, cost, scope, quality, resource, and risk. And he says everything is a variable, and resources, by resources he means materials, equipment, people. Cost is, to my mind, another resource, and I think that's nice. And actually, I don't know that he was the first to really try and do this. If you go to Prince 2 Agile, they have time and cost, which in Agile are fixed per iteration. Each iteration has fixed time and cost, but then you're managing benefit, scope, quality, and risk. So once they name me, is on something really important. The tyranny of time, cost, and quality as the only ways we measure the objectives of our quality of our projects is something we need to get away from, and we need to be thinking, what are the right measures for the projects? And as I say, I just wrote in the margins of my notebook, for social projects, maybe it's delivery, funding, and social value. No, that wasn't carefully thought out. That was just something that came into my head as I was listening. And as I say, I'd really like to develop that. So if you think that's an interesting topic for content, whether it's a newsletter thing, which is ideal for my kind of hardcore followers, or whether it actually makes its way onto YouTube or a full article, I don't know. Katie Kaplan says, "Hey Mike, great work. I like your content. I'm a PMI PMP based in London and wondering what added value APM might confer." Well, hold on, Katie, because interestingly, that's a question. That kind of overlap of APM and PMI qualifications is something that came up in the panels, and we've only just started. We've talked about failure rates and audit and scrutiny of failure as our second priority. Let's move on to our third, but we will come to that in sequence. So it's good to have you, Katie. New voice, I think, on this channel. So I know this one's a big one for APM and Adam Bodson as chief executive. The third theme is around the need to bring people into the profession. He quoted a PMI survey, or maybe it was Listen Drabon who quoted it, a PMI survey that talks about a 25 million person shortfall in project managers, according to a PMI survey, by 2030. Let me just go back to there. That's a huge number of project managers we need. Now, some of you will know that I have been sceptical in the past of, excuse me, my microphone's jammed. I have been sceptical in the past of the way that PMI handles data in some of its reports. So I will take that with a pinch of salt, but it is clear to me, and the APM's own research under its Future Lives and Landscapes campaign showed a shortfall in project managers in the UK today. So there's a kind of plausibility to the pattern, but the number I don't know about. Anyway, we have a huge recruitment challenge in the profession. We need to get project management professionals into the profession to deliver the things that society needs and values. In fact, Adam Bodson said, "How many project management professionals will it take to deliver net zero?" To which I kind of immediately wondered, how many would it take to change a light bulb? Because we need to change all our light bulbs to low energy. Anyway, that throwaway little joke. But the point he made there is that one of the challenges we face is that the project management profession doesn't have the same status as other professions. People don't think of accountants and lawyers and engineers and surveyors and project managers, and yet we think of ourselves as a profession, or at least maybe not all of us do, but we should. Particularly if you are someone like Jessica, who says she aspires to become a project manager. Jessica should be thinking about this as a profession that she can enter and contribute to and grow with and make a big difference, and she should expect to be as valued in her society as doctors, lawyers, accountants, engineers, all the other professions that we think of. So I think that's important. And we need to think about how easy it is perhaps for accountants and HR professionals to move from one sector to another. Being an HR professional in the finance sector isn't that different to being an HR professional in the telecom sector. Most of your professional skill set is applicable. I think that's true of project managers, and I think we need industry and government to think of that too, so that if you are a project manager in government, you can move into industry. If you're a project manager in healthcare, you can move into telecoms. And that then led Adam Bodson to muse on the role of a professional body in the future, and he said that he sees part of his role as to future-proof APM so that it is there for the profession. Then Lisanne Drabon from PMI said that she sees the role of PMI as to make people aware of the value of the profession and to make it attractive to the younger generation. I think that's absolutely right. If we have professional bodies like PMI, APM, IPMA, APM, then what are they if they're not there to draw the younger generation into the profession? And I can't remember who made this comment. I didn't note it down, but I thought it was a good one. It may have been Alistair Gobbold, I think. But someone said that we need to focus more on mindset than skill set. Because that's what will make the profession seem relevant, not just, you need to learn a whole load of skills, but actually you need to think like a project manager. I think that's absolutely true. And part of that mindset needs to be that we are here to deliver something to a purpose. And again, that was a callback, I think, a deliberate callback to Carmel McConnell. And it's a purpose as well as an outcome. And of course, a good few years ago, I kind of launched my course on benefits management, which is all about saying that, we deliver projects to deliver benefits, not to deliver outcomes, not to deliver stuff, deliverables. Right, so that was the third theme. The fourth theme, and this will be the one for Katie. Once They Name Me says, how many project managers will it take to change the culture? It should be our focus as well as the technicalities of project execution. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something that PMI and APM are on to. And so let's come on to the relationship of APM and PMI. Lisanne said that at service level, PMI is all about the individual, but its more important role is a champion for the project profession. And that is the value it delivers. So, yes, PMI is there to provide professional qualifications, to provide events that project managers can go to provide continuing professional development, or PDUs as PMI calls it, professional development units. But actually, its real value is about creating a really sound profession. And she said, we could do this in isolation, or we could do this together. And by working with APM, PMI can amplify its voice. And then Adam Bodson picked that up, and he talked about the fact that APM and PMI are together seeking alignment at a global level on things that can make the biggest difference. I mean, just wow. Lisanne said, of course, that they're starting small. They're not ready yet to talk about the substance of the discussions they've had, but they will be soon. They are starting small, trying to build up trust and understanding between the two organisations. But their intention now is to do things together where they can and where they must. And she said, this is a significant moment. And I wrote that down in quotes, so that is exactly what she said. She said, this is a significant moment. And she then said, the past is past. And I think she's referring there in the UK, PMI, I think, tried to take APM to court, but it certainly fought tooth and nail to stop APM getting its chartered status. Never understood what that was about. Why? It's kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger being intimidated by the muscle power of Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage, the actor who plays Tyrion Lannister. The size differential is massive. It's just massive. But the past is past. It's over. And Adam said, watch this space. The first step is not too far away. Those were his words. Watch this space, and the first step is not too far away. Those were the 4 words he said there. And he also says it's not about, so this is directly to Katie's point, it's not about forcing individuals or organisations to choose which. They, again, it was Adam Orlison said this, I think Adam, there are many routes, many qualifications, and they are all recognised, and they, PMI and APM, are hoping to find sensible ways to move freely between the different pathways. So my answer to Katie's question, what added value APM might confer, it's kind of like saying, well, you're in London, you've got a Sainsbury's and a Tesco's probably within reasonably easy distance. What value does it confer having the other? It's choice. APM does things differently, in a different way at the moment to PMI, and it produces different reports with different voices about different topics. It has a whole load of different bloggers articulating different thoughts to the bloggers at PMI. It has different qualifications which may serve you differently. If you're working globally for an American company, then yeah, it would be surprising if they didn't value the PMP above other qualifications. But if you're working in the UK for a UK-based company filled with APM members, then it would not be surprising if they did not value an APM qualification above a PMI qualification. There is some mapping between qualifications that one could do. You could kind of draw some links. Without a doubt, at the top end, the kind of chartered status at APM represents a much higher level of attainment than PMI's current highest qualification, the PMP. No doubt in my mind. But at the bottom, CAPM, PMP do map quite reasonably to the PFQ, and I can't remember the next qualification up, Project Fundamentals qualification or whatever. Anyway, there are APM qualifications, but it's not just about qualifications. If you're in the UK, chances are you have you can join APM special interest groups if you're interested in particular topics. There are going to be local branches of the APM, just as there are local chapters of the PMI. Different speakers, different ideas, different people to meet. So I think there is a huge value in access to both. You choose which is more relevant to you, or if you think they both have something of value to you, then you choose both. Give them a go. Adam then said something which I think was really interesting because he felt able to say it in front of PMI. He said chartership. He sees chartership as a global status. Now, I've always thought of chartership as very much a British thing for the APM. And he said there are a lot of PMPs who want to become chartered. And Listen said the PMP, they believe that the PMP needs to change in the sense that it is the highest status that PMI currently confers, and you can get it after only 5 years of experience, whereas chartership is a huge thing for project managers in the APM. And another comment that Adam made was that PMI and APM working together will give more ability to create change in the profession, which I think is true, and it will be better at retaining talent in the profession. And Listen said, there is a clear journey that project managers need to take through the profession, and there needs to be a range of different options for what your next step is wherever you are, what comes after mid-level roles. And if we kind of link that to the recruitment challenge that I'd labelled number 3, and the progression challenge, let's get back to the start. Adam said something which I think resonated really with me, which I talk about. It's the only point where I really editorialise in the video that will come out next week. He talked about the need for children to aspire to the project management profession, and therefore we need an increasingly values-led profession with multiple starting points. And he linked it to a topic which is a big, important topic in the UK. He sees multiple starting points for a professional career in project management as a vehicle for social mobility. And for those of you who are not in the UK and not familiar perhaps with the term social mobility, what he means by that is that it doesn't matter what background you come from. You may have not had the opportunities in early life that other people have, but some people will be, through their natural inclination and their natural talent and their natural enthusiasms, excellent project managers, which mean that you can progress through the profession and rise to the top of our profession. And that enables you to rise through society. And so I thought that was really interesting. What have we got here? Jessica says, does APM provide certifications as well? Yes, it does. Let me just hop over to the APM's website and show you their professions. So qualifications and training here. So they have 3 examined tiers of certification. Project Fundamentals Qualification, PFQ. This is the one I forgot. Project Management Qualifications, PMQ. How could I forget that? And Project Professional Qualification. But after that, you can also... Where is it? There is a level that is not examined. It is interviewed. It is by interview, and it is chartered status. Oh, there we are. Chartered standard. Here we are. And the chartered project professional is the highest tier, and these are people who have absolutely reached the top of the profession and are recognised as highly skilled, highly experienced project managers. If we go back to the qualifications and training, as well as the 3 core courses, they also kind of in some cases certificate, and in some cases have adopted a number of other certifications. The APM Project Risk Management Single Subject Certificate. They also link in, because the APM is a member of IPMA, as are most national project management organisations, but not PMI. But there is another national project management organisation in the US whose name I forget, much smaller, and they are affiliated to IPMA. There's articles on my website about IPMA and IAPM, which is another international project management association. They also kind of link into project planning and control and earned value management certifications. So yes, Jessica, there's a lot there. And my answer always, as to what certification should you seek, explore the market that you want to work in. Explore the geography, get to know the employers in the geography you want to work in and in the sector you want to work in, and find out which certifications they value most and which ones will give you what you value most before making your decision. It's not a matter of, is APM better than PMI? It's, for the next stage in your career, is what APM offering more valuable to you than what PMI is offering. Now, something because I mentioned sort of earned value management and project planning and control, it's worth noting that there are vast numbers of APM. Oh, let me get me up here. Vast numbers of APM kind of handbooks and publications available, including this fantastic earned value management handbook, and indeed a slightly lighter weight earned value management APM guidelines book, and there are loads of these things published. They produce some great ones. Directing Agile Change is actually quite a winner for me. What have I got here? Co-directing Change, Governance of Multi-Owned Projects, APM Introduction to Program Management, Project Auditing, that's a riveting read. Sponsoring Change, that I did value. Integrating Assurance. And so there are all sorts of things. And so a lot of the stuff is kind of based on their own kind of SIGs and things. So those are the equivalent of the PIT. So for those of you who are PMI members, you all have books like these. You might have your book on work, the practice standard for work breakdown structures. That's an old one. In fact, most of mine are old. This is practice standard for project risk management. Again, that's out of the previous one. Scheduling, portfolio management, program management. You know, they've got all these as well. So, but you'll notice that these are different books, some covering similar subjects, some covering different subjects. APM and PMI have both got big publishing, or sizable publishing arms with interesting calendars of publications. So again, you don't have to join to buy the books. I think you get a small discount if you join. You can get the books slightly more cheaply. I think both of them now offering free PDFs to members of some of their publications. But you know, there's value in both of them, and there, you know, one can critique different individual books on their own basis, but they both produce really good materials for the profession. So, Katie, I hope that answers your question, but please do come back if it doesn't. Right, I think if I come back here, there are still a couple of themes that were picked up at the panel. The next one was, why have I lost number 5? Is there not number 5? 5, social value. Yeah, they talked a bit about social value, the importance of not bolting social value onto stuff, but building social value into your projects, and the importance that that Lisanne said there's a real need for leaders that can define purpose and inspire passion on their projects, which I thought was really important. And the last theme, which I've got as number 6, was penultimate theme. Number 6, I've got one skill overrides all others. No idea who said this. The ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn, which anyone who's familiar with models of change will know that that's very familiar to. That should call to mind Kurt Lewin's unfreezing and refreezing model, freeze phases, and the importance of staying curious all the time, which is, you know, something that you'll know that I'm really big on. We need to keep learning. We need to learn stuff and then build it into our practice and change stuff. And it was Alistair Godbold who talked about that. And he actually ended the, or at least, no, he didn't. But I'm going to end with something that Alistair Godbold said, which I thought was really important. He said that a lot of the tools and techniques that we have at the moment are designed for linear projects, simple, straightforward linear projects. But we need more tools to deal with complex projects, because simple tools may do nothing more than enable us to fail faster. Now, I know the Agile community will say they understand Cynefin. If you don't know what Cynefin is, have a look on the channel for my video. What is Cynefin? It's spelled Cynefin. It's a Welsh word. But I agree with Alistair Godbold. Outside of the Agile domain, we have big complex projects, and a lot of our social projects are huge and complex projects, and we don't really have all the tools we need. Now, I need to speed up a little bit because we need to finish at 1:30 in another 8 minutes, because I need to head off to Aikido. So I'm going to talk about Aikido. The last speaker was Langley Sharp. Langley Sharp, former paratroop commander, battalion commander in the Parachute Regiment, wrote a fantastic book, The Habit of Excellence, which I do recommend if you're interested in leadership. Let me just put a link to that in the chat. Oh, what does Ade say? Ade, Mike, if you have to buy a couple of project management books, which will it be? I'm not going to answer that now, because I just need to get through this before I need to go. I want to answer it though. If I had to buy a couple of project management books, what would it be? It depends on the level you're at and what you're into. It really does. If you're a starter, then I think my book, How to Manage a Great Project, is probably the best place to start to learn the basics of project management. If you're an experienced project manager, which I think you are, and you want the basics but in a new and more rigorous format, then Glenn Alleman's performance-based project management is fantastic. So, basics for beginners, how to manage a great project. Basics for people who want to rethink their approach to the basics, performance-based project management, Glenn Alleman. And if you're on LinkedIn and you want to really be stretched in your thinking about project management, link with Glenn Alleman, follow his, I think he writes pretty much every day on LinkedIn, a substantial article. I think he's retired. And he is the most rigorous thinker I know on the subject of project management. So that's my quick answer. Anyway, I will go back to that one. So Langley, he talked about something I thought really important: the need for a stable base to allow for agility. He used the metaphor of a boxer's stance. Boxers cannot be agile unless they have a good, solid stance. And I'm about to go off to Aikido to teach an Aikido class in 10 minutes. And one of the things we learn in Aikido is that your posture and your stance are important. They provide a stability that enables you to react quickly to whatever happens. And he said, if we can create a stable base, you can build preparedness in your team. And as leaders, we need to influence the environment and the culture so that we can build a team on a stable base. And he used a model of building a team, unleashing the team, and then uniting a team of teams, which you can read a lot more about in his book, The Habit of Excellence. And he talked about the importance in unleashing the team of the idea in the military of mission command, which he talked about as freedom and responsibility. You tell people what they need to achieve, and then you give them the freedom and a sense of responsibility to do it for themselves. So he said the leader's job, and I think this is equally true of us as project managers, as it is for military leaders, our job is to tell people the what and the why, and then to empower them to deliver the how. And that is real agility, and I think that is absolutely spot on. But he said it's important. Leaders can delegate the how and the doing, but they do not devolve their accountability. And in talking about delegation, he said something I thought was fantastic. In the military, he said, in the British military, they have a principle, and I wrote it down verbatim. He said, we need to delegate to the point of discomfort and then delegate some more. So that's my challenge to you. If you have people you delegate to, are you delegating to the point of discomfort and then delegating some more? Because I know that was something I was never the best at. And then he talked about the team of teams, which I think is an idea that comes from Stanley McChrystal, American general. And he talked about the need for a shared understanding, extreme transparency in information sharing, plus empowered execution. That is, you give clear direction, clear intent, and then you let people get on with it. And McChrystal uses the phrase, apparently, an eyes-on, hands-off approach. Leaders' job is to drive collaboration amongst their teams and their teams of teams. And to do that, we need to have the humility to be led by the people that we lead. So that was a bit of a rush through what actually was my favourite part of the whole day. I really enjoyed meeting Langley. So what are my thoughts? I think my fundamental thought is that yet again I've rediscovered how valuable it is to take a day to be exposed to new ideas and make notes and reflect upon them. And I'm singing to the choir here because you're all doing this, you're all attending this live stream. I hope, though, that you will be, if not taking some notes, certainly reflecting on what you've heard, because that is, I think, how we grow as individuals, as professionals, and how our thinking grows. And I do want to just end up with one recommendation to you all. They talked about AI at a number of different sessions, and it came up. And I have recently had the privilege of, I'm about 3/4 of the way through a course by friends of the channel, Andy Kaufman, who I've interviewed a number of times. I'm going to be publishing another interview with him soon. He has created a course called AI Made Simple. And AI Made Simple is a course about using tools like ChatGPT that we all have access to, but using it to be better at delivering projects. It's highly contextualized. There's stuff there that's specifically for project managers. And that, I think, is remarkable. And so if you are interested in doing that, I'm going to make you an offer. I'm going to suggest that if you want, and I'll paste a link in the chat, if you join that course, which I think is $49, I will throw in free access, if you do that by Friday, to my own AI briefing pack. It is filled with exercises. It has opened my eyes to the ways that I can use ChatGPT and tools like it, like Bard, to actually help deliver projects, help do the things I need to do. So take it or leave it, but certainly do evaluate it. And as I say, if you have bought it through my link by Friday, I will throw in free access. Those of you who subscribe to my newsletter, you'll see that when the newsletter comes out, I will be offering a discounted access to my course to anyone who buys this. But if you act before the newsletter has really settled by Friday, then and you email me and say you've done that, I'll check with Andy to make sure it's gone through, and if it has, then I will give you free access to my course. Now I need to get off because I have an Aikido class to teach in half an hour. I've got to get some water and get out of the house and get there, get the mats out. So I'm going to say thank you all very much. Katie says, thanks Mike, your answer is quite insightful. Is it me, but it seems to be using 50-50 of project management and product management skills to achieve desired outcome these days? There are, I mean, it depends on what sector you're in, but yeah, there is an overlap in product and project management skills, and product managers often are using project management skills in their work. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, the flex method, Elio Costa's, free to use project management methodology. It is highly scalable, the flex model, and it scales all the way from enterprise to portfolio to program to project to product. So Katie, if that's of interest to you, do take a look at Elio's website, flexmodel.com. I've put a link in the chat. If nothing else, there are some great downloadable resources on that, as well as the kind of core resources that explain the flex model, which is actually a fascinating read, with a lot of good project management learning in that free PDF. But there are also about a dozen fantastic little ebooks about single topics. I'm going to try and find them, bear with me. So this is the flex model page, but if you go to resources and click on ebooks, the first one there, value governance. Oh, the covers aren't showing. The value governance one is written by me, but there's ones on leadership, digital transformation, which is very on point, business analysis, negotiation, and stuff, people management, OKRs, knowledge management, Lean Six Sigma. So a lot of really interesting free content there, and the methodology is really powerful. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your comment, Patrick. I'm going to sign out now. So thank you all very much for joining me in this rushed and lightly prepared live stream. I will see you all. The next live stream is not going to be the first Tuesday of July, because that's the 4th of July, and a number of my audience are American citizens, United States of America citizens, and may be doing something else on the 4th of July. So it's going to be the 11th of July, and we're going to do a mid-year taking stock of my year of AI in project management, and we're going to look at what we've learned during the first half of the year, and what's changed during that time. It's over the summer period, so it's going to be a kind of chat. See you then. Take care until then. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.